I've never seen anything like move so fast before. It couldn't be a bear. It kind of felt a little bit like a little odd to see something take off like that and not knowing what it is, and so it was pretty tall.
And when I panned over to the left with that spotlight, we saw 3 sets of eye shine that were like fence post markers, bright red, boom, boom, boom. Immediately we stepped right back inside, and I put the 30-06 in the skiff. He didn't cut the line, and I'm yelling at him, throw me my knife, throw me my knife. And when it looked at me, I immediately knew what food felt like.
From the misty forests of British Columbia to the haunted valleys of Kinderhook, 6 witnesses from different corners of America recount encounters too vivid to dismiss. Giant silhouettes watching from the trees, glowing eyes in the dark, voices that echo through the hills. Each story different, yet all connected by one chilling truth. Something ancient still walks among us. These aren't myths, they're memories of those who came face to face with the impossible. Footage, courtesy Documentary Vault. California, a name that conjures images of palm trees, beaches, and the glow of Hollywood. But far north of Los Angeles, the Golden Coast transforms into something entirely different. The land grows wild, the forests grow thicker, and the air grows still. Here, beyond the borders of comfort and civilization, lies the heart of the Bigfoot mystery, and perhaps the most haunting encounter ever told. In the remote regions surrounding Willow Creek and the Six Rivers National Forest, generations of locals have whispered the same story.
Pretty darn realistic. It's still not enough to prove that the creature is real. For every person that believes that that's a real Bigfoot, there will be another who says that just looks like a man in an ape suit.
Hunters, loggers, and tribal elders all speak of a towering creature cloaked in dark hair, a shadow that watches from between the trees. They call it Sasquatch. The world knows it as Bigfoot. For centuries, the native tribes of Northern California, like the Hoopa, Karuk, and Yurok, spoke of a great hairy man that lived deep in the forest, a guardian spirit of nature or a warning to those who wandered too far. Their legends weren't meant to frighten children. They were recollections, warnings passed down from people who saw something. Then came the modern encounters. In 1958, while construction crews were building a logging road near Bluff Creek, they discovered massive human-like footprints in the soft soil.
Watershed and the area where the film was shot, the famous footprint finds and stuff.
Each nearly 16 inches long. The workers laughed it off at first until their tractors began to move on their own. Heavy machinery weighing hundreds of pounds was found pushed deep into the forest overnight. The men quit the job, and that's when the word Bigfoot first made headlines. Locals began reporting sightings. A man fishing by Indian Creek saw a tall, dark figure kneeling by the water, scooping up water in its hands. Another resident described waking in the night to the sound of thunderous footsteps shaking the ground outside his cabin. It wasn't a bear, he said. It didn't sound like a deer. It sounded like something walking, something heavy. But what makes this story truly haunting isn't just the footprints or the strange noises. It's the testimonies that came decades later, calm, sincere, from people who had nothing to gain by speaking. One woman recalled driving home late at night when a massive silhouette stepped out from the redwoods and crossed the dirt road in front of her. It moved like a man, but taller, she said, and when it turned its head, I could see the shine of its eyes. Others claim to have found elk carcasses with their heads twisted completely off, acts of strength no known predator could achieve.
And I stood on the flat area above where the main bedding area goes. It slopes. It's on the slope down the mountainside.
Bob Schmitzbach, a retired engineer and researcher from the nearby town of Happy Camp, spent years documenting these stories. He used thermal imagers and night vision, collecting evidence that defied explanation. I've seen them watching me while I was photographing footprints, he said. They're cautious. Smarter than we think. For every skeptic, there's a believer who swears by what they've seen. Even park rangers, biologists, and professors have quietly admitted that something out there doesn't fit into science's neat boxes. Dr. Matthew Johnson, a family man and respected psychologist, once described seeing a massive upright figure while hiking with his wife and children. "When I saw it," he said, "everything I knew about the outdoors came crashing down. I just wanted to protect my family." And perhaps that's the truth hidden within these encounters. For all the myths, photos, and shaky footage, what stays with you are the voices, the emotion in their tone, the tremor in their words. These aren't actors. These are people reliving moments that changed how they saw the world. Today, Willow Creek stands as the unofficial capital of Bigfoot country.
And it turns out that now that I've been here and got to talk to people here, there have probably been 15 or 20 sightings at this point. If you stop here for a second and just listen, all you can hear is the river. You don't hear cars, you don't hear trains, you don't hear buses, you just hear the river.
Its museums display casts of enormous footprints. Its locals share stories that span generations. Whether the creature is a relic of an ancient species, a spirit guarding the wild, or something entirely unknown, the mystery endures. In the silence of those forests, where the fog hangs low and the rivers echo through the valleys, there's a presence that never truly leaves. And for the people who've seen it, who've felt the weight of its gaze, California isn't just the land of sunshine anymore. It's the land where myth steps into reality, where one haunting encounter can change everything you believe. Footage courtesy Eric K. Swanson, Documentaries. Location, Kinderhook, New York. Nestled in the heart of New York's Hudson Valley, the small town of Kinderhook carries a quiet charm. Colonial homes, winding country roads, and the legacy of Washington Irving, who wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow just miles away. But beneath that calm exterior lies a darker tale. For decades, whispers have circulated about strange beings roaming the nearby swamps, creatures known only to locals as the Kinderhook creature. This chilling story begins in late 1979, when author and researcher Bruce G. Hallenbeck first learned of something unusual happening near his grandparents' property at a place called Cushing's Hill.
Kinderhook is a small town in New York's Hudson Valley. It's where Washington Irving wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. It's also home to some strange occurrences over the years, including the Hallenbeck family's encounters with the Kinderhook creature.
His cousin, out trapping muskrats one morning, came running to the house pale as a ghost. He claimed he had seen 3 creatures crossing the stream, tall, reddish-brown, walking upright, and making low grunting and clacking sounds. It was broad daylight. The family dismissed it at first until Bruce's grandmother revealed she had seen something strange the year before. A large figure curled up in her yard at dawn. When she returned moments later, it had vanished. She hadn't told anyone out of fear they'd think she was losing her mind. But now, with her grandson's story, the memory came rushing back. Soon after, odd things began happening around her home. Trash bags vanished from the porch, only to be found opened and scattered neatly across the yard, untied, not torn. One neighbor even found her rubbish hanging from a tree.
My cousin first saw some creatures down there in the swamp, and he said he saw 3 of them. And this was in the daytime. He said these 3 creatures were crossing the stream. He just said they had reddish-brown hair all over their bodies, and they were walking upright, and they were making like grunting and clacking sounds, he said.
Something intelligent, curious, and powerful was moving through Kinderhook's quiet woods at night. Then came the night of Bruce's own encounter. It was the summer of 1980 when an unearthly sound echoed through the forest. It started like a shriek, he said, then turned into guttural moans and ended in a deep, drawn-out howl. The sound was so loud it seemed to vibrate through the earth. Bruce knew it wasn't a coyote. He'd heard plenty before. Whatever it was bigger and close. But the real terror came a few months later, September 24th, 1980, a night Bruce would never forget. His grandmother had just returned home when a horrific moan erupted near the old root cellar. It sounded like a man in unbearable pain. Bruce's cousin Sherry, sitting in the car, described it as ape-like. Panicked, the family locked the doors. Bruce's aunt fetched his cousin Barry and his shotgun. As she approached the house, she froze. A massive silhouette loomed in the moonlight, its arms long, its head oddly conical. Barry fired a warning shot into the air, but the sound only stirred the creature.
Fired the gun again, and this time he said flame came out of the barrel, and the thing screamed and ran off. And he thinks maybe it was the flame in the barrel that made it run. So by the time I got home, this had all been over for a few minutes.
It crashed through the brush, screaming, a chilling, human-like shriek that echoed for miles. Barry fired again. A flash of flame burst from the shotgun barrel, and the creature fled into the woods. It screamed like a girl, Bruce later recalled, and that was the last we ever heard of it. The family stood trembling in the aftermath, the night eerily silent once more. For hours, chaos filled the Hallenbeck home. The creature had been stalking the area for nearly an hour, watching, waiting. Bruce's grandmother said it was the worst sound she'd ever heard, like a person dying in agony. She believed it was the same voice she had heard months before. After that night, the activity ceased. No more howls, no more scattered trash. It was as if the creature had simply vanished. But Bruce never forgot the fear. The sense that something intelligent and ancient had brushed up against their world. Years later, he documented the entire ordeal in his book, The Kinderhook Creature and Beyond, a personal reminiscence, hoping others might finally take the story seriously. It wasn't a bear, he said quietly. It wasn't a man either. Whatever it was, it knew we were there. Perhaps somewhere in the misty woods of Kinderhook, that same creature still roams, silent, unseen, and waiting for the next curious soul to cross its path. Footage. Courtesy. Apparent Wind Expedition. Location. British Columbia. Deep in the wild forests of British Columbia, a team from the Apparent Wind Expedition set out to document the Kitasoo-Xiexais First Nation. But what they found was far from ordinary. Locals spoke of something ancient, something real. Sasquatch. It began quietly. While unloading supplies along a forest trail, one of the men spotted movement. Fast, powerful, and gone in seconds. Too tall for a man, too swift for a bear. He described it as nearly 9 feet tall, covered in dark hair, moving silently through the trees. Then the forest went still. Unnaturally still, as if even nature was holding its breath. Back at camp, the talk spread quickly. Some of the elders had spoken of the Sasquatch before. Stories passed down through generations. They always said, not everyone gets to see one. Only a few are given that chance. For many, it was a tale of respect, not fear. But for the younger members who saw it with their own eyes, the experience was life-altering.
One thing that I have to admit from Clem 2, I now absolutely 100% believe in Sasquatch. Heard a lot of stories about Sasquatch. From the first time that we came up to Clem 2 to when we left, Sasquatch is real.
I've never seen anything like move so fast before, that we're talking about, it couldn't be a bear.
It kind of felt a little bit like a little odd to see something, take off like that and not knowing what it is, and so it was pretty tall.
One of the men, still recovering from an injured hand, wasn't present when it happened. But when he returned, he could see the change in his friends, the mix of fear and awe.
I wasn't out here when it happened. I was out. I had to take some time off because I recently cut myself in my hand. Yeah, and so I had to take some time off for that because I couldn't close it properly. So, yeah, I heard it when I got back in, though. When I got here, though, I heard the stories.
Freaked out or excited? Or?
They seemed pretty freaked out, but at the same time excited. I wanted the experience, too. I wanted that experience. So it'd be pretty cool.
You think it'll happen?
Hopefully.
Then came the most detailed testimony. 2 men, Matthew and Spencer, had been dropped off for a 2-day stay. While unloading supplies, Spencer saw a dark figure dart across a clearing. Matthew looked up and caught it too, describing how it took only 3 steps before vanishing into the forest. they heard a tree snap, followed by an overwhelming stench, like rotting flesh. The smell was so strong it burned their noses. They had no fire going, yet the air was thick with decay. Matthew told his friend to start a fire and play music, hoping the sound would keep whatever it was at a distance. That night, as the fire crackled, something moved around the camp. Heavy steps, 2 feet, then a low growl that carried through the darkness. The next morning, they found clear evidence. Large footprints near the camp. Knocks on wood, 3 times, answered by 3 knocks in return. It wasn't random, it was communication. The men didn't panic. Instead, they quietly packed up and waited for their boat. One of them later said, "It's not something to fear. My family told me that when it shows itself, it's a message. Something meant for you to feel."
Me and Matthew did experience some Sasquatch. Matthew, he kept me calm and all that. We were out here for 2 days, and right when we got dropped off, Spencer and Matthew were already up here and all that, and literally just right behind us, in that clearing there, Spencer was standing there, and he saw black figure run.
A 4th witness, an elderly craftsman, recalled the night with eerie calm. "It was fresh," he said. "Everyone's still talking about it." It wasn't his first encounter, but it was the most vivid. The first sign was the smell, so strong it burned his nostrils. "What is that?" he asked his co-worker, who smelled it too. Moments later, the black bear that normally passed their camp changed its path completely, hugging the shoreline and refusing to look toward them. That's when he knew something was wrong. Then came the sounds. Heavy footsteps circling the camp, brushing against the yurt walls nearly 10 feet high. Later, massive branches snapped in the dark, followed by deep, rhythmic grunts. It would take a few steps, stop, grunt, then move again, until dawn. When morning came, they stepped outside and froze. Right beneath the window was a massive footprint, long, narrow, with defined toes and heel. Not a bear's. Whatever it was, it had stood there, watching them through the night.
It's fresh. It's fresh. My opinion is that they are real. This is the second time I've encountered one. I smelt it right away. It's real pungent smell. It's really burn your nostrils, bad smell.
The elder said the morning that followed was unnaturally quiet. No birds, no squirrels, no seagulls, nothing. It was absolute silence. He knocked on a nearby tree 3 times. Instantly, 3 knocks answered back from the distance. It wasn't random, it was aware, intelligent, deliberate.
You wake up to birds, squirrels, you wake up to the squirrels, or you wake up to the seagulls even. One morning I woke up to the killer whales out here. But this morning it was dead silent. I grabbed a stick and I knocked on the tree I knocked 3 times. I got immediate response, three knocks back, and it wasn't too far from us. So it was just walking away from the camp kind of deal. That was my second encounter with one.
Through it all, he said he never felt fear. Startled, yes.
Not once during that whole encounter did I feel threatened or fear. I wasn't scared. It's quite the experience, so. Startled a couple of times, but not scared. Yeah. Anyway, I was safe the whole time.
But never be afraid. I was taught to respect them. If you don't bother them, they won't bother you. His calmness contrasted sharply with the eerie stillness that had followed. For the Kitasu Zaiksais, these events reaffirmed an ancient belief that Sasquatch isn't just a creature of folklore but a guardian of the forest, existing long before humans ever walked these lands. To them, the encounter wasn't just haunting, it was sacred. Footage courtesy, Bushcraft Explorer. Location, Sullivan Creek Road, Metaline Falls, Washington. Nestled deep in the Pacific Northwest, where the mist clings to the pines and the sound of the creek seems to whisper secrets, lies Sullivan Creek Road, a place where wilderness and mystery coexist. Bushcraft explorer joined veteran Bigfoot researcher Bill Bisson and his wife for a weekend of camping, exploration, and perhaps an encounter with something not quite human.
We're staying at camp doing some Sasquatch research while he's up here. Besides looking for tracks, he's going to be setting up an audio recorder up on Hall Mountain.
The camp was set up at Campsite 11, a quiet pocket of nature surrounded by old-growth trees and the constant echo of flowing water. The area carried an old soul, relics of logging days long past, rusted cars swallowed by moss, and springs tangled in roots. It was a land where history lingered, and so, it seemed, did something else. Bill wasn't here for a casual weekend. He came armed with a custom-built parabolic microphone, a tool designed to capture sounds too distant or too faint for the human ear. His goal was simple: record any unusual noises that might reveal Sasquatch activity in the region. As the sun dipped below the mountain ridges, he climbed high up Hall Mountain, mounted his recorder, and left it overnight, hoping the silence of the forest would tell him a story.
Set up some colored stones down there. We seem to have Sasquatch that like to come and check out the camps. I thought if I put these out here. But what I'm looking at is I'm looking at a trail. Okay, trail goes here. So I thought I'd just lay these here for the night. And this is how I set them up. I've had the color rocks moved around before. Well, let's walk on over to those old trucks or whatever that Marshall was talking about earlier.
That night, the wilderness held its breath. No lights, no movement, only the crackling of firewood and the faint rush of the creek. Somewhere beyond the tree line, something stirred, the kind of sound you feel before you hear. A low, distant rumble, then silence again. Bill and his team waited, listening, knowing full well that out here, even the wind could play tricks. The next morning, the parabolic recorder was silent. A drained battery had ended the experiment prematurely. But failure in Bigfoot research isn't new. It's a test of patience, of faith. It's like searching for a needle in a haystack, Bill reflected later. Even if they're out there, they're masters of stealth. You'll never see them unless they want you to.
Look here. .9mm Luger. What?
So we're on the backside of Sullivan Creek. Out in the middle of nowhere, Bill finds this wind chime with a cardinal on it.
Throughout the expedition, the team found strange signs, structures of crossed logs and tipi-like markers scattered deep in the woods. Some dismissed them as natural formations. Others believed they marked territory, water, or paths used by Sasquatch. Bill's tone was grounded. 95% of what you see out here is nature. But that last 5%, those are the moments that make you wonder.
Kind of a game trail here. Looks like old road.
One discovery, however, truly unsettled them. Deep in the forest, far from any trail, a lone wind chime hung in the middle of nowhere. A cardinal ornament swaying gently. There were no houses, no camps nearby. Someone, or something, had placed it there. Bill suspected it might be part of a hidden camera trap, a lure to attract attention. The thought that others might be watching, or worse, that something was watching them, sent a chill down the group's spine.
Like human presence has been here.
I think you're right.
I think if we look well, we might even find a camera.
He's thinking that somebody might have left it out here for Sasquatch to attract attention. And of course, there is a camera somewhere So this would be like a camera trap, you know,
I don't see a camera unless they do a pretty good job of hiding it.
By the end of the weekend, they had no footage, no howls, no tracks. Yet what they carried home was something far more compelling. A feeling that refused to fade. That quiet awareness that in those dark Washington woods, they were not alone. As rain began to fall on the final morning, Bushcraft Explorer summed it up best. Out here, you may spend years without proof. But sometimes, it's not about what you see. It's about what you feel. And in Sullivan Creek, the forest feels alive, like it's keeping a secret. Footage courtesy Alaska Means Business. Fred Rohel, a Kuryong Tribal Council member and lifelong Alaskan outdoorsman, grew up with stories that were more than folklore. They were survival lessons. Never go into the woods alone. Never follow the whistles. They're always watching, his Aunt Lucy used to warn. To outsiders, those words might have sounded like a myth, but for Fred, they would one day prove horrifyingly real.
And when I panned over to the left with that spotlight, we saw 3 sets of eye shine that were like fence post markers. Bright red. Boom, boom, boom. Immediately, we stepped right back inside. And I put the 30-06 in the skiff. He didn't cut the line. And I'm yelling at him, throw me my knife, throw me my knife. And when it looked at me, I immediately knew what food felt like.
It was 2006 when Fred, his uncle, and cousin set out along the remote Nuyak River for a short prospecting trip. They set up camp inside an old fish and game counting station, an 8-by-8-foot shack on the riverbank. After dinner, the wilderness fell unnaturally silent. Then came the sound, a low, heavy creak, as if the very wind had weight. Except there was no wind. Fred caught something move past the window, a shadow darker than night itself. Moments later, his cousin froze mid-game of cribbage and whispered, "That ain't funny." When they stepped outside with a 1,000,000 candle power spotlight, 3 sets of eyes glared back from the tree line. Red, perfectly aligned, like fence post markers in the dark.
To get to my little place, and as I came around the brush to go down this trail, it kind of opens up with some tall grass and then those alders. I thought I saw my uncle at first because he was like 6'4" at the time, you know. And I'm standing there, I'm like, oh crap, I'm gonna get in trouble for, you know, getting away from the house. I was just gonna, you know, own up and, you know, let whatever happen. But I got a few more feet and I look up because I got this weird feeling and this thing started swaying back and forth.
Instantly, the men retreated inside. Fred armed himself with a shotgun, his uncle gripping a rifle. Then, silence. Not even the river seemed to move. And then, it looked in. Through an 18-inch window, a face stared back. Massive, gray-skinned, deeply wrinkled, with eyes like black glass marbles that reflected the lamplight. Fred froze, staring into that monstrous gaze. In that moment, he said, I knew what food felt like. Panic took over. Fred fired 3 slugs through the wall. The shack exploded with sound. A thunderous scream shook the room, rattling pots like a struck tuning fork. His cousin collapsed under the table, trembling, nearly catatonic. Hours crawled by in suffocating silence, broken only by the faint thud of something moving outside.
Whatever happened, but I got a few more feet and I look up because I got this weird feeling and this thing started swaying back and forth. And just as I was getting ready to yell out to say, hey, uncle, it's me, this thing screamed at me and it was evident that it was not my uncle. The scream reverberated through everything. I immediately turned around and I was out of there. You know, that's when I realized how real all the warnings were.
When they finally dared to look again, a hulking figure loomed behind the shack, towering, impossibly wide, absorbing light itself. Fred estimated it stood at least 13 feet tall. They killed the lantern, clutching their guns in the dark, waiting for morning. As dawn crept closer, they made their move. Fred's cousin was to cut the boat's anchor rope while Fred covered him. But before they could step out, rocks began pelting the shack, slow at first, then in a furious hail. When it stopped, they sprinted for the riverbank.
There was this darkness behind it, and it was so dark, it was absorbing light. It was the damnedest thing. I'd never seen anything like it since, but it was like absorbing the light, and then we seen it move, and then you could then you could see it was darker than dark, but you could make out the silhouette. This thing was massive.
Fred was helping his uncle into the boat when a rock the size of a basketball flew past his head and crashed into the river with impossible force. He turned and saw it. A massive, black, man-shaped being emerging from the trees. He fired 3 rounds from his .30-06, direct hits to the chest. The creature didn't flinch. It simply stopped, watching them. Fred threw the rifle into the skiff, screaming, "Cut the rope! Go!" The motor roared to life, and as they sped downriver, the only thing louder than the engine was the sound of Fred's heartbeat, still echoing the scream of Alaska's hairy man. Footage, courtesy, mysteries unknown. In the quiet town of Marshall, Texas, a man named John Fuller shared a chilling encounter that would haunt him for over 30 years. Known by his friends as a kind and respectable man, John never sought attention or fame. But one winter night changed his life forever.
Okay, I'm John Fuller. I'm from Marshall, Texas. And I had an encounter with Bigfoot. And
It was around midnight when John and his then girlfriend, 8 months pregnant, were driving down a lonely country road after visiting family. The moon glowed bright over the empty fields.
It happened 30 years ago. And me and my baby mother was going to visit my baby mother's sister, you know, out in the country in Marshall. We drove out there one night about 12 o'clock, and the moon was shining like, you know, full moon.
Lighting up the frost-tipped grass and the long stretch of road surrounded by dead winter brush. About 5 miles from the main highway, John stopped the car to relieve himself. The night was still. The air was crisp. Nothing seemed unusual until it did.
Road about like 5 miles long in the country to get back to 59. And it was around these cow pen pastures with cows and stuff. Just a long stretch road, you know, and it was in the winter time. And, you know, everything dead and stuff, you know, the grass and stuff. So we was heading back, and I wanted to use the bathroom, like, you know, pee and
As John stepped out, he suddenly noticed the moonlight vanish behind him. When he looked up, 2 glowing yellow eyes stared back at him from the darkness. He first thought it was a tree, but there were no trees near the road. Then came a foul stench, an unbearable mix of rot and urine. His girlfriend smelled it too and screamed from inside the car, "What is that smell?" She yelled, but before John could answer, a massive shadow moved.
As soon as I got out and I was facing the back of the car, the pee, all of a sudden I look up and I couldn't see the moon no more, and I just seen these yellow eyes. And and then I had smelled this real foul smell, like pee and mixture, like, you know, someone ain't bathed in years. It just stunk real loud, and she smelled it too, and she hollered through the window and said, "What's that smell?" And I said, "I don't know." And then she said, "What you doing?" I said, I see something. And then
It stood, towering, human-like, yet beastly. Its body was covered in light brown hair, and its face resembled a primitive man, something ancient and powerful. When John shook a handful of weeds toward it, the creature lunged. With one impossible leap, it landed at the back of his car. John's legs gave out. His heart froze. His girlfriend screamed in terror as the thing roared, a deep vibrating howl mixed with a siren-like wail that rattled John's spine.
the eyes of the yellow eyes, all of a sudden this thing just jumped. It just like launched to the back of the car, and my leg buckled, and she hollered out. She said, "Oh, what is that?" And I said, "I don't know." And I looked, and it just looked like a big, giant, like caveman man face, and you know, just so big and muscular, and it jumped to the back of the car. It just launched toward it. Ape body, looking like a gorilla body, like, but it was just huge, and its face looked like a ancient caveman, and it looked like a human face. And man, my leg buckled, and I was about to pass out by the fear, and a cold streak went up my back, man. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and I gathered myself, and as it jumped to the back of the car, like lunch, was the leg was so long and it was so huge and tall. When it jumped to the back of the car, it made this screaming, growling, whining noise all together.
Panicked, John dived back through the car window, falling over his girlfriend as she cried out in fear. The car engine was still running, but in his confusion, he kept turning the ignition, desperate to flee.
That creature started lifting up the back of the car, and me and her were just screaming. And I was screaming loud as she was. It lifted up the back of the car, and we was tilted on the dash. I'm on the steering wheel, and I pulled it down and drive, and I was just pressing the gas hard as I could, and the front wheel was just hollering, turning, but they couldn't move because the creature was holding.
Suddenly, the entire car lifted from the rear. The tires spun wildly in the air, screeching against nothing. The creature was holding the car off the ground. John and his girlfriend screamed as the vehicle tilted forward, the front scraping the dirt. The sound of its growl shook the metal frame. For nearly 30 seconds, the beast held them suspended before letting go. The car slammed back to the ground. John hit the accelerator, the tires catching grip, and they sped off at full throttle toward the main road. Neither of them dared to look back. "I'd rather be hit by a truck," John later said, "than see whatever that was again."
It held it about 20, 30 seconds. Finally, I guess it couldn't hold it no more, and the car just gave away from it. And man, because I was so scared, I said, I'd rather let a 18-wheeler or car hit me than...
When they reached a nearby gas station, both were trembling, speechless, pale with shock. They stayed there for half an hour before driving home, too terrified to check the car's rear for damage. The next morning, John returned to the area with his father, but what they found made his blood run cold. 15 to 20 cows lying dead across the pasture, each with strange holes torn into their sides. The rancher had no explanation.
And we pulled into this gas station, which was Fina right by I-20, and we were just shaking, just sitting there from this experience we had. And she wanted me to get out the car to look, and I wasn't trying to get out that car for nothing right now.
That was the last time John ever went near those woods. To this day, he refuses to step into a forest alone. It looked human, he recalled, but it wasn't. It was something ancient. For decades, people laughed at his story, but John stood by it. His trembling voice, his vivid details, and the fear in his eyes told the truth no one could deny. Whatever he saw that night was real to him, and if you listen closely to his words, you might start to believe it was real to this world too.
Deep in the heart of North Carolina lies the Uwharrie National Forest, a place where the pines grow thick, the nights turn pitch black, and the silence can feel heavier than the trees themselves. It's here, in this rugged, secluded wilderness, that Mike begins his latest journey, determined to uncover the truth about one of the most mysterious creatures on Earth. Bigfoot. The forest seems peaceful at first, the Baden Lake campground quiet under a blanket of stars. But Mike isn't here for peace. He's here to meet men with stories that could change the way we look at these woods forever.
Mike within the shadow of Big Red Eye here. Welcome to the Uwharrie National Forest. Might as well have some fun while we're out here. But anyways, all seriousness, or all jokingness aside, we're here for a serious reason. We're here for some library presentations, but we also got two witnesses coming at you that have been from the Uwharrie National Forest here.
The first is Lee Woods, a North Carolina investigator who has spent years studying the Uwharrie. As the fire crackles in the cool night air, Lee begins to tell Mike about a night back in 2010. A night he says he'll never forget. It was around 10:30 at night, Lee recalls, pointing toward the campsite where it all began. We were sitting right here by the fire, me, my son, Kenneth, and another guy named David. Then we heard it. Just one heavy wood knock.
It was me and my son and
Kenneth, and a guy named David. And we were sitting right here, and it was around 10:30 at night. Had the fire going, and nothing's changed. It's spot looks just like it did then. Nothing's changed. And about 10:30, back over in that direction, which would be campsite number 5. It's right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
We hear just one heavy wood knock.
In Bigfoot research, wood knocks are often considered a form of communication, warnings, signals, or even territorial displays. For Lee, this one sound was the beginning of a night he still thinks about over a decade later. Moments later, Lee started walking back toward his truck. That's when everything changed. It was like I hit a wall, he says, his voice steady but serious. Like something just told me to stop.
My truck was sitting down here. My truck was sitting right there in number 10, which that picnic bench is at.
Okay.
And when I got right about between them 2 trees right there, it was almost just like I hit a wall. I mean, literally, it's like something just said stop.
I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it, like something was out there, watching me. For anyone who has spent time deep in the woods, that primal sensation, the feeling of being hunted, is unmistakable.
As I was standing there, I knew I could feel there was something out here. I could just feel it. So Ken hollered down here to me because I'd been standing here for about a minute and it was pitch black. And a lot of people don't understand. When I say you can't see your hand in front of your face down here some nights, I mean, you can't even see the tree. It's pitch black. I couldn't even see you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm standing here.
Lee stood frozen in the darkness, unable to shake the sense that something was just beyond the tree line. He eventually retrieved his night vision and returned to the fire, but the uneasiness never left. Then his son Joe, standing with a parabolic microphone, suddenly stiffened. He motioned for Lee to come closer. When I put the headset on, I didn't hear anything at first, Lee explains. But then I heard it. Breathing. Deep, heavy breathing, like something was struggling to catch its breath. It sounded just like a bear. That's what I thought it was at first, but it wasn't a bear.
He's standing here with a parabolic dish. He's standing like this right here. And about probably 15 minutes later, he's standing right here and he said, come here. So I come back over here, put it back in my ear, and just as soon as I put it back in my ear, straight ahead, right down through there, I hear, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And dude, he went, you hear that? And I said, yeah.
Yeah.
First thing went through my head again, bear. And I thought, oh my God, there is a bear down there. That's what I heard.
Minutes later, Ken caught something on his night vision. A figure standing near a large tree just beyond the campsite. Lee grabbed his own device, adjusted the focus, and there it was. A massive figure, towering, motionless, just watching them. The head was way up there, Lee says, holding his hand far above his own head to show the height. And then I saw it move. First behind the tree, then out the other side, back and forth, watching us the whole time. What struck Lee the most was not just the size of the creature, but the intelligence in its movements. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't rushing us. She was observing, leaning out slowly, showing a little more of herself each time, like she was letting us know she was there. Lee and Ken watched the creature for nearly half an hour. At one point, the figure turned slightly, and that's when they knew.
So I looked at the night vision, and just as soon as I picked that night vision up, she was there, and then I stood there and looked at her for maybe 20 or 30 seconds. And she went back behind the tree, and then she went to the other side. She leaned up on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Then she came back to this side, and she was going from one side to the other, leaning out. But every time she leaned out, you see just a little bit more.
You could see it was a female, Lee says. You could see her whole upper body, clear as day through the night vision. She was massive, thick shoulders, cone-shaped head, arms hanging low. And those eyes, they glowed green in the night vision. They were as big as the lens of a camera.
She came out and she turned like this right here. She turned real slow. And that's when we could see it was a female, because you could see the breast.
Right.
And you could see the eyeballs. That was one thing that I noticed right off the bat. Because through my night vision, it was kind of a greenish gray look. So her eye was showing up green, and her eye was as big around as that lens right there on your camera. That's God's honest truth at that distance.
Wow.
Then, as suddenly as it began, the encounter was over. The figure walked slowly out of sight, disappearing into the thick foliage. And almost immediately, 2 loud wood knocks echoed from the nearby forest, as if signaling her safe departure. For Lee, the night confirmed what he had always believed. These creatures are real, intelligent, and never alone.
Right back down to number 5. 2 hits on a wood knock.
Oh, wow.
It was like they were letting them know she was leaving the area. And the one thing I've told people, and I'll say it again, the one thing that I will never forget is the way that it looked and the way that it moved.
Where there's 1, there's 2. Where there's 2, there's 3, he says. They travel together. They watch us just as much as we watch them.
And what was weird about that was, I've always told people, where there's 1, there's 2, where there's 2, there's 3, and that is a fact. They never are alone.
From Uwharrie, Mike continues west to Asheville, another hot spot for strange activity. The Blue Ridge Mountains loom like silent sentinels, their misty slopes hiding countless secrets. But if Lee's story proves anything, it's that those secrets aren't staying hidden forever. This journey through North Carolina blends witness testimony, on-site investigation, and raw, unfiltered encounters. A reminder that some mysteries are closer than we think, waiting for those brave enough to step into the dark and look for answers. Deep in the Monongahela National Forest, the crew of Beyond the Trail set out once more in search of answers. The nights here are long, cold, and quiet, the kind of silence where even the smallest sound carries weight. But what they captured on this trip would leave them questioning what exactly shares these woods with them.
Kind of catch it up here, but nothing came through that I've found so far. Review the video at faster replay speeds. So like right there is 32x. Helps us move through video much faster. And if something were to come through, you would see the heat.
At first, it was only the wilderness speaking. Wind, rain, even snowfall on the final morning near Spruce Knob. The team hiked through cliff ridges and stone formations, the vast forest stretching endlessly on both sides. Nothing unusual, just the challenge of weather and the beauty of West Virginia's backcountry.
Views on that side. We're up on the ridge, which means we're going to continue on, find some of these awesome rock formations. A little breezier up here than shielded by the backside of the hill there, but feeling great, feeling good, especially after that cold morning, waking up in the snowfall. This is
But as evening came, their work began in earnest. They linked up with researcher Charles Kimbrough and set a thermal unit high on a ridge, scanning the laurel thickets below. It was a smart setup, a mobile recording station capable of running all night. Yet while the thermal remained quiet, the audio recorders told another story. Around 4 in the morning, a sharp sound cut through the silence. A single knock. Not natural, not random. Crisp, clean. Something deliberate. "That's a definite pop," one of the team remarked as they replayed the file. Another compared it to a wood strike. However described, the sound carried intention.
It's around 4 a.m., 4:20, somewhere around that area.
That's interesting.
But I can cut and give you the audio.
Yeah, that'd be great,
want.
because I mean, I just listened to it myself, and yeah, you can hear it. You could hear it too, right?
Yeah. It's fantastic sound, honestly.
I can play it through the speakers.
Yeah, let's see if it might work. Yeah, that's pretty good.
As they studied the spectrogram, faint percussive blips appeared before the loud knock itself, as if something was moving, preparing. It matched, almost eerily, another knock they had captured days earlier
over 40 miles away near Dolly Sods. Two separate areas, two nearly identical sounds. Could this be the same presence shadowing their journey? Or was it proof that this behavior, knocking, is part of something much bigger in these mountains?
Upon further review, this knock sound does not appear to be alone. This might be best heard via headphones, but pay attention to these blips that you see here on the spectrogram. There appear to be some kind of percussives or other sounds prior to the loud, very clearly audible knock.
The following day, more subtle knocks were reported. One hiker, sitting near camp, swore he heard a deep wooden strike echo from the ridge.
Today was good.
Yeah, I thought you heard a knock?
Mike might have heard a potential knock in that direction, so that's where we started our hike.
Others captured faint but similar sounds on recorders around 1:30 a.m.
But I came kind of looking that way, and I remember I turned to see if anyone else noticed it. And
nobody else did.
Right, not.
And then you had mentioned you possibly got some knocks on your audio recorder.
Yeah, you got. Yeah, I'd like to listen to those actually when you have a chance.
I'm really curious about that. Maybe we can compare them to the one that Charles got.
Yeah.
What time were they in the morning? Do you remember?
Late, like between 1:30ish, between like 1:30 and 2 a.m.
When compared side by side, the patterns aligned almost perfectly. Too consistent to ignore.
Here's a comparison between the knock captured last night at this location and one of the knocks we captured near Dolly Sods a few nights ago, over 40 miles away.
By nightfall, the group split into teams, moving in opposite directions from camp. Audio recorders were left running. Calls and knocks were exchanged in hopes of stirring a response. The forest remained still, watching, waiting. The truth is, no one saw what made those knocks. No figure appeared in the thermal. No shadows crossed the firelight. But the audio remains. The sharp, undeniable crack in the night. In the words of the team, it was not natural, and so the question lingers. Was it wood on wood? Was it something else entirely? A mouth pop, a signal, a message? Or maybe, just maybe, it was a Sasquatch letting them know they were not alone. What do you think? Was this the sound of Bigfoot in the Monongahela? Or just the forest playing tricks in the dark? The team behind the Canna Creek Bigfoot expedition had already posted their field video when viewers began contacting them. Several followers asked them to highlight a specific section they believed showed a possible Bigfoot figure. Responding to the requests, the team revisited the raw footage, slowed it down, stabilized the image, and zoomed in to give a clearer view. This was more than just a curiosity. Shortly before filming the clip, they had documented what they believed to be compelling physical evidence.
This is the section in our expedition video that a lot of people contacted me on and said, hey, will you highlight this part of the video? I think I see a Bigfoot shape back there. And I think this is the part that they're pointing out. I'm not quite sure, but I took a screenshot and here it is stabilized.
In soft soil near the creek, they found a large footprint measuring 14 inches long and 7 inches wide across the toes.
Weird how the microphone wasn't working here. I don't remember turning it off. Well, anyway, we get down and measure it, and it's right around 14 inches long from the furthest back of the hill and the longest toe. And then the toe splay at the widest distance is right around 7 inches wide.
At the heel, just before it tapered, the print spread a little over 5 inches. The edges were clean, the soil deep enough to hold the impression, and at the front there appeared to be distinct toe marks.
And then down at the heel, just before it starts to taper, it's a little over 5 inches wide. and we didn't find any boot tread in there or anything, and it was really splayed at the top, which a boot or a shoe does not splay out 7 inches.
This was the best defined print of about a half dozen they had located that day. Most of the others were faint, but this one had stepped into perfect conditions for a clear measurement.
Actually, a human footprint is 4 inches wide, and with shoes and boots on, it's about 4.5 inches wide. So 7 inches wide up at the toes, and they did have indentations that looked like toes. Not saying it was Bigfoot. It's just Bigfoot shaped. It's deep. It's wide. And it's 2 inches longer than my boot track.
Near the footprint, they discovered more intriguing finds. A primitive-looking tool lay close to the prints, along with what appeared to be a basic structure. It was impossible to tell whether the object had been shaped or simply eroded by nature, but the proximity to the tracks raised questions. The team speculated aloud. Could a Bigfoot use such a tool for fishing, catching snakes, or digging? Or was it simply left behind by a person who had passed through long ago?
Here's the primitive tool that we found right near the footprints that were going down to the river. And we were trying to figure out what they might use this for, if it's actually, a Bigfoot tool. I mean, are they catching fish with it? Lizards, snakes, mice, squirrels? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. Maybe a person made it and left it here, but we did find Bigfoot tracks nearby. Okay, we're getting to the section that I wanted to highlight.
The video segment that drew so much attention began as the camera zoomed past one of the team members, Jenny, who was hiking ahead near the area where prints had been found. Beyond her, in a patch of shadow, the shape of something dark and upright appeared for a brief moment. Viewers believed it resembled a Bigfoot, broad, humanoid, slightly hunched. In the stabilized half-speed version, what could be the head seemed to jerk slightly to one side before vanishing behind the trees.
Although I'm looking for the clear open footage of Bigfoot and looking for evidence along the way, this is something I normally probably wouldn't make a big deal out of, but viewers that participate and help us get out there, they're asking for this, and so I decided to stabilize it and all of that so you could get a better look at it. I hope you guys enjoy our Bigfoot sightings, researching Bigfoot sighting hotspots across the Rocky Mountains and the Pacific Northwest.
Back at the print site, the team remeasured the impression. Again, it came out at 14 inches long, 7 at the toes, 5 at the heel. There were no visible boot treads or shoe patterns. Human feet, even in boots, rarely splay beyond 4.5 inches at their widest. This print spread 7 inches. Though the footage is not clear proof, the team presented it for transparency. Viewers asked for this, they explained. So we slowed, stabilized, and highlighted it. Canna Creek remains one of their active hotspots in the Rocky Mountains, a place where vocalizations, structures, and tracks continue to be reported. For now, the stabilized clip adds one more puzzle piece to the mystery walking along the creek. Footage courtesy. Cursed, urban. Have you ever stepped into a forest where silence feels heavier than sound? Where every tree seems to lean closer, listening, waiting. That's the mood inside what's known as the Bigfoot Forest, a stretch of woodland where strange structures, knocks, and unexplainable screams have been recorded. Dan, the creator behind Cursed Urban, returned to this place on an early evening in September. It was still warm, the air thick with the scent of leaves beginning to rot, the season slipping slowly into fall. He wasn't expecting anything unusual. This trip was more of a quiet walkthrough, a chance to see the land in daylight and study the tree formations he had recorded before. But like most encounters, the unexpected comes when you're least prepared.
Bigfoot hunting expert. I don't know much about this at all. So yeah, I usually get most of my info from the comments from people who were smarter than me in this subject, which is a while ago, and some people are saying that it could be a structure or a potential start to a structure, with just how many interesting things have been accumulated.
Moving deeper into the forest, Dan noticed something he had missed at night. A tall tree angled into what looked like the start of a teepee structure. It didn't appear to have fallen naturally. The tree seemed carried, almost placed. In Bigfoot research, such structures are often debated. Are they shelters, territory markers, or simply coincidences of wind and gravity? Just minutes later, the silence of the woods shattered. A scream rose from the direction of the suspected structures. Not the call of an animal, not the sharp bark of a coyote, but something that sounded eerily human. Dan froze. He described it as if someone had yelled the word "help." That single cry shifted the calm exploration into a moment of raw unease. Driven by both caution and curiosity, he pushed forward.
That was like a human scream from that way. That was definitely like a human scream. Dude, and that's the way the structures are too. Let's get over there. That's literally the exact same way the structures are, and I just heard that. That sounded like definitely a person. It almost sounded like they said help or something.
The scream had come from the same area where he and a friend, Seth, once left offerings. Tinfoil coins that vanished, replaced by a neat pile of rocks. That exchange suggested intelligence, intent. And now the scream seemed to pull him back to that exact place. The forest grew heavier as he walked. Fallen trees blocked paths, their weight pressing into the earth as if shaping barriers. He called out, "Hello? Is there someone who needs help?" No answer returned, only silence, as if the woods swallowed his voice whole. At the structure site, he found more signs of disturbance. Bent metal fence pieces twisted with unnatural force. He tested the strength of the steel. It wasn't the kind of bend an average person could make by hand. Dan then tried a classic Bigfoot method, tree knocking. The crack of wood against wood echoed through the valley, and soon, from the direction of the river, came a reply, a knock, distant but deliberate.
Yeah, I saw these trees leaning over here, and that's kind of what I was really interested in. So what was going on here are creaking and whining under this wind. It sounded like a knock, but I'm not completely sure. Yeah, I'm getting paranoid because all these trees.
Could it have been coincidence? The wind? Another hiker? Or was something truly answering back? Moments later, an overwhelming stench of rot drifted across the trail, thick, sour, and then gone as quickly as it came. Veteran researchers often describe a foul, fleeting odor just before Bigfoot activity. For Dan, it was one more sign that he wasn't alone. So what do you think? Were those screams a cry for help, a trick of the forest, or the voice of something not entirely human? Footage courtesy, Hellbent Holler. Hellbent Holler is a two-person team dedicated to searching for Sasquatch and other unexplained phenomena across the southern Appalachians. Joe has spent 2 decades tracking Bigfoot in the American South, while Jesse Lee brings years of experience in paranormal research. Together, they combine traditional fieldwork with a tech-driven approach, taking recorders, thermal cameras, and drop mics into some of the most remote regions of Appalachia. One spring, they returned to a closed-down logging road deep in the mountains. A few weeks earlier, they had spent the night here, leaving recorders along the trail. On playback, they captured something chilling. Slow, deliberate footsteps, moving toward the microphone before fading away. This time they came back in daylight, determined to see if the activity would repeat.
We heard some interesting stuff, right?
Sounded like very heavy, slow, deliberate footsteps.
Kind of see if anything's changed since the last time we were here. And we're gonna see if there's any new footprints, any more like foot traffic through here, and just observe and see what's happened through here since the last time we checked it out.
The woods were strangely quiet. No bird song, no insect hum, just stillness. As Joe noted, the place felt dead, even under bright skies. The team set down another recorder in the same spot as before, ready to test the area again. Soon after, they found signs of disturbance in the moss. Small circular impressions dotted the ground, alongside patches where the forest floor had been pressed flat, as if something heavy had moved through. Then came something unmistakable.
You can see
the moss has been pushed up. Because it looks like this moss, that is the roots of the moss. Looks like the moss was here. Yep, that's exactly how it was. And then it's been flipped up. So it's not necessarily a step, but
See if you feel any impressions in the dirt. Anything?
I got one circular here and here.
A patch of scat filled with hair, lying near a large print pressed deep into the soil. The track showed clear toe impressions and measured about 11.5 inches, similar to medium-sized prints they had found during earlier visits. Jesse compared it to others they had recorded, small ones under a foot long, mid-sized tracks in the 12-inch range, and massive impressions stretching over 17 inches. The deeper they went, the clearer the evidence became. Fresh depressions marked the moss, showing travel corridors along the abandoned road. Soon, Joe spotted what he called plain as day, a perfect print with toes, a mid-foot break, and a solid heel impression. Tape measurement confirmed it, 11.5 inches, medium-sized, crisp in detail. The two realized they had now confirmed at least 2 sizes in the area.
See it?
Yeah,
All right, get the tape measure.
you got that.
Watch what I got. Here, hold on.
Jesus.
Yeah. There's our big boy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a left print. Look at that.
Yep.
Same one, 17.5.
There you go.
Same one. All right, same one. Here's the big one.
But the moment that changed everything came just before dark. Moving toward a river bend, Joe's flashlight revealed a massive track. The tape stretched across 17.5 inches. The print was fresh, no more than a day old, with only a few pine needles lying on top. Moments later, another appeared close by, the same size and depth, left and right, proof of a very large individual.
Look back through here.
It's not even dark yet. Yeah.
Look right here. There's big prints back through here, big depressions all back through here. Right here, look right here. Let your eyes just kind of settle.
Yeah, I see it.
Right through there. Can you get that on camera?
It's camera and eyes are two different things, but
Oh, it's mashed down.
what you got?
18 inches. 18 by about 6.5 at the middle.
As the sun dipped, the team felt watched. Strange noises echoed from the brush. A heavy, musky smell drifted across the path. Both Joe and Jesse admitted the sense of being inside something's home. Fresh, wet spots, not from rain or deer, appeared along the trail, as if something had been marking its territory. By nightfall, they had logged more prints, large, medium, and small, and the uneasy sense that multiple creatures might be moving together. For Hellbent Holler, the discovery ranked among their best. Fresh, undeniable evidence that something massive walked those mountains, leaving behind more than just tracks.
From Washington's rugged trails to New York's quiet woods, these encounters remind us that the unknown still breathes within the wild. Whether you call it Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or something else entirely, its presence lingers, unseen but deeply felt. Perhaps the truth isn't waiting to be discovered. Perhaps it's watching us instead. Until next time, keep your eyes open, your camera ready, and your mind prepared for what may be hiding just beyond the firelight.